When assez bien Ja'far al-Mahdī had on the road pilgrimage, he left behind an empire firm in its foundations, secure, ordered, and vast. Upon that foundation rose his son Al-Mahdī, the third Abbasid Caliph. Where his father was stern and sparing, Al-Mahdī was gracious and generous. He inherited not a revolution to command, but a civilization to refine. Under his rule, the Abbasid Empire entered an age of splendor, an age that would make Baghdad the envy of the world. The scholars said, under Al-Manṣūr, the empire was built. Under Al-Mahdī, it breathed when he took the throne in 775. Peace reigned from the Atlantic coast of Al-Andalus to the mountains of Transoxiana. The armies of Islam guarded borders no enemy dared to cross. Trade flowed freely along the great roads from Sind and Samarkand to Damascus and Egypt. And at the center of it all stood Baghdad, the city of peace. The round city his father had built was now alive with color and sound. Markets filled its quarters. Scholars debated in its mosques. Craftsmen and poets arrived from every province. Goldsmiths, calligraphers, and physicians thrived beneath its domes. Al-Mahdī opened the gates of the city not just to merchants, but to knowledge itself. From Persia came the sciences of medicine and governance. From the lands of India came mathematics and astronomy. From Greece came philosophy and logic, translated into Arabic by scholars under his patronage. This was the dawn of the Abbasid Golden Age, the meeting of intellect and empire. Poets praised him as a ruler of mercy and majesty, one whose generosity had no measure. Toi people, he was not only itself. Yet Al-Mahdī was no idle monarch. He ruled with a sense of justice tempered by grace. Every morning he would hear the complaints of the people himself, whether the plaintiff was a noble or a peasant. He would often disguise himself and walk through the markets of Baghdad, listening to the people's words unguarded. His reign saw the system of Masnalam courts strengthened, tribunals where the oppressed could bring their grievances. Directly before the state, he expanded the post and intelligence networks that his father had built, ensuring the Caliph knew every movement within his realm. And though his rule was gentle, his authority was absolute. Often said the ruler, who does not hear the cry of the wronged will one hear the cry of rebellion. Under Al-Mahdī, Baghdad shone brighter than any city before it. Its mosques echoed with the voices of scholars reciting Hadith and Quran. Its streets glowed at night, with lamps hung over shop fronts, a marvel few cities of the world had yet seen. The Caliph's court became a garden of refinement. Poets like Basha ibn Bird and Abu News filled it with verses of wisdom, wit, and longing. Music and literature flourished, but so too did the sciences and crafts. The translation movement began to grow roots, knowledge flowing east and west under the Abbasid name. The empire's borders were secure, its coffers overflowing. It was said that during his reign, the treasury of Baghdad was so full that gold coins were weighed, not counted. His generosity was legendary. Once, a poet praised him so beautifully that Al-Mahdī emptied a tray of dinars before him and said, "Take this, for the words that make men remember their ruler are worth more than the words that praise him to his face." Yet, within this splendor lay the first signs of change. The simplicity of the early Abbasids began to soften under comfort and ceremony. The palace walls grew higher, the robes more ornate, the banquets more lavish. The Caliph, who ruled from Baghdad, now sat behind silken screens, attended by pages and poets instead of generals and rebels. The empire was at peace, but peace brings its own temptations. The people began to see in their Caliph not the commander of the faithful, but a king in all but name. Still, Al-Mahdī's devotion remained. He built mosques across the empire, restored the sanctuary on the Kaaba with gold. He was known for his humility before Allah, often praying alone in the dark before dawn. His reign also saw the first great tests of thought and belief. In his time, the debates between reason and revelation began to stir in Baghdad's schools. The Mu'tazilah beside those of traditional scholars. Al-Mahdī himself encouraged open learning, but held fast to orthodoxy, ensuring that faith and philosophy could coexist under the same sky. He once told a scholar, "Knowledge without piety is pride, and piety without knowledge is weakness." The strength of this ummah is that it possesses both. Al-Mahdī's rule lasted a decade and more. It was an era of security, art, and wealth, a time when the Muslim world seemed to have reached perfection. But, as history would show, every golden age carries within it the seeds of its own decline. He died in 785 while on a campaign in the lands of Persia, leaving behind a realm at its height. His son, Musa al-Hadq, would rule briefly, and then his grandson Harun al-Rashid would take the Abbasid crown to even greater brilliance. Yet the balance between splendor and simplicity, between faith and luxury, would never again be so perfectly held. Under Al-Mahdī, the Abbasid Caliphate stood at the pinnacle of its power, the empire of peace, knowledge, and refinement. And though centuries have passed, Baghdad's golden light still bears the mark of his hand, for Al-Mahdī was the Caliph who taught the empire how to live, after his fathers had taught it how to rule.